Hi, welcome to my little hobby corner here. I've got my coffee. It's really hot here in Japan. The humidity is nuts, but I'm ready to talk to you about Warcrow and the army of the Hegemony of Embersig. Okay, so the Hegemony of Embersig is kind of like an alliance nation of mostly humans, dwarves, and elves. As far as I know, that's pretty much all the races that are in the group. And they've just kind of come together to make their own little empire. And they're kind of quite expansionist, kind of, I guess you could say they're for the greater good or something like that. But they basically are beset on all sides at the moment. Their emperor is 12 years old, I believe, and so all of the enemies on their borders are looking at it as an opportunity, seeing the empire as being weak at the moment. Their army is called the Black Legion, which sounds pretty evil, if I'm to be honest, but so far they seem pretty neutral. Kind of, they see themselves definitely as the good guys, as every empire does, but they are expanding through the elves' woodlands. They're close to the borders of the northern tribes. Yeah, basically everyone's kind of a bit pissed off with them, if I'm to be honest. But in the starter set that we're going to be seeing 7 models, getting you started with a small army. And I'm just going to go through some of the different models in the army and look at how they're going to play on the field, and maybe that will give us a good idea of how the Hegemony of Embersig will work in the game. So we're going to start off with the line infantry, the Black Legion Bucklermen. And in the set you get 4 models, and the unit card here is 20 points, and that covers all 4 models in the unit. They move, they have 2 wounds for each model. Their willpower is an orange die, which is pretty bad. It's a pretty high chance of failing your willpower checks with that. However, they can get buffed by leaders around them, so we'll look at that a little bit later. They have a morale of 1, so they can get stressed once and then they start having problems. And there's an availability of 3. So it is a very, very cheap unit. You can get 3 units of 4 of these. So you could actually fill up an army and just use these for territory control. And it doesn't really cost you that much in terms of points, I don't think. However, when they do fight, they have a melee attack, and of course they have a defense. So the melee attack and the defense are split into kind of 2 different stat lines. One is for when they have 3 or more models. When they have 3 or more models, their melee attack is a red dice and 3 orange. It's pretty aggressive. You're going to get a lot of successes with that, which equate to wounds. But they can also convert the hollow special, which is kind of a rare roll on the dice, to a shield. So this kind of represents their buckler, I would imagine, meaning that even when they're attacking, they're still a little bit on the defensive using their shield. Their defensive roll are 2 green and a black die, and again, this time if they get just a regular special, they can add a shield to the roll. A regular special is going to come up a lot more, so on the defensive side, they're a lot stronger. When they actually go down to 2 models or less, then they become considerably weaker, with only 2 orange die and 2 yellow die for the attack. The orange die are less effective than the red die, and the yellow die carry more specials, but they still carry a few hits and successes. You can still score a fair few, but the likelihood of actually getting successes has deeply reduced compared to when they have 3 or more models. Again, they still have the same switch, where if they get a hollow special, they can add a shield. And on their defense, they roll 2 blue dice. So again, their quality of defense drops. So as they lose models, they're actually going to become a lot squishier as well. So yeah, there's that. On the one really, really positive thing about these guys is that they have a conquest value of 2 with 3 or more models. This means that if they're sitting on an objective, they are holding it pretty decisively compared to the northern tribes anyway. And even when they're down to just 2 models, they still have a conquest of 1. So they're still adding to that conquest value, making them pretty good at holding objectives. I think that's where we're going to see a lot of their use. Alright, let's have a look at the War Surgeon. The War Surgeon is a support unit. Similar move values to the Bucklerman, carries 2 wounds, just like the Bucklerman do, and has 1 orange dice for the willpower. So far, all the same. There's only availability 1, so you can only carry 1 of these guys in your army, and they cost 15 points. So they're only 5 points shy of a 4-man unit of Bucklermen. So where are they actually strong? Their attack is pretty awful and their defense is really bad. Conquest of 0 as well. Nothing about this is good. However, the War Surgeon comes with some abilities. One of them is First Aid. Using one of their actions, they can target an allied unit within 5 strides, and this will reduce the target stress by 1. The fact that Bucklermen are going to be taking stress pretty easily, and they're going to see problems pretty fast with only a morale of 1, having a War Surgeon nearby to just reduce that stress is pretty handy. Not only that, but when they roll, they'll roll a red and orange die for this, and they can actually heal wounds from the target for every success obtained. When healing a unit Bucklerman, they'll take up to 2 wounds, and then one of their models are removed. So on a Bucklerman unit, you can only actually heal 1 wound at a time. However, if there's a character nearby, the War Surgeon is going to be really, really useful at replenishing all of their wounds. And that's going to really frustrate the opponent if you can keep your War Surgeon alive, which is pretty cool. He also has a passive ability, which is Science, Not Superstition. And so at the end of the round, during the No One Gets Left Behind step, the allied units that are within 5 strides at any moment heal 1 wound, and max once per unit. So again, very, very useful if he's close to any units. If they've taken any wounds at the end of the round, he's going to heal them. That's pretty cool. He's very, very powerful, except if he gets sniped, I think he's going to be an easy snipe. And I think your opponents are going to be targeting him, because once he's out, then you're removing a lot of these buffs that he just dishes out. He's all about healing and reducing stress. Which is really, really handy, because stress is such a big thing in Warcrow, from what I can tell. So you'll want to just take him out if you can, if you get the opportunity. Now, he can actually be added to a unit of soldiers. And what happens is you would connect this card to the unit that he attaches to, and he'll just be an extra model in that unit. So rather than you using all of the information at the top of the card, you're using the information just at the bottom here. So he's adding absolutely nothing to the unit except an extra model and a couple of passives. So Medic, when your unit is about to suffer any damage, roll your willpower and ignore 1 wound for each success obtained. And so when your unit performs the rest action, heal all its wounds. So it's pretty good for adding to a unit and just preventing damage. He also carries poison vials, so this will also add a hollow special switch to your unit's attack rolls, allowing you to wound your target. Now this is pretty good, because this will ignore the opponent's shields. Because you're doing this, activating this in the switches step, you just ignore their shields and do some damage. So even if they get a really, really good roll on their shields, as long as you've got a couple of hollow specials, you can do a couple of wounds to a unit, which is pretty handy. However, if you attach this guy to the Bucklerman, then you're going to have to choose which switch to take. Do you increase shields, or do you poison and damage the enemy? That's up to you. Personally, I think I would run this guy on his own and see how he does. I would just be worried about getting sniped. That's the main problem there. We also have another special character, the Frostfire Herald. I think in this set, the wizards are going to be the spellcasters are going to be the hardest units to kind of get your head around at first when you're playing the game. However, I think they're going to offer a lot of fun. With the whole tinge mechanic, it seems pretty cool. We'll try and talk about tinge in another video, I think. Otherwise, I'm going to get bogged right down with it. But basically, tinge is your perils of the warp for Warcrow. And the mechanic seems pretty cool. I want to try it out actually in a game, but it does seem pretty cool. Here, the Frostfire Herald is an elf, and you'll notice his move is 4/3, which is more than the other units. So I think we can pretty much understand that all elves are going to be a lot faster on the table than other units. They're going to move around pretty quickly. He has 2 wounds, but now he's got a willpower of 3 orange die, so he's not going to be scared of anything, but he also uses that willpower to cast spells. So he's going to be pretty good at casting. With a morale of 2 as well, he can take on a couple of stress tokens too. He's only availability 1, so you can only carry 1 Frostfire Herald at a time. He has no conquest, his attack is crap, and his defense is pretty crap. So you're not going to be looking to charge things into close combat with this guy. Now, he does have this ability. He has a couple of magic spells that he can actually cast. So one of them is Fire Blaze, which targets an enemy unit within 7 strides, and you resolve a ranged attack using red, orange, yellow, yellow. That's pretty good. That's a pretty offensive roll that you can make there. Now, with these spells, you can choose to buff them at the danger of getting more tinge. And so here you can upgrade it to add an extra black die to the tinge roll to get the spell's range up to 12 strides. You can also add on a switch which will cancel shields from the target's defense, making it much more effective using just the specials that you roll. Now, Hand of Wind is going to target units within 8 strides. This is going to displace the targeted unit. So if you're targeting a friendly unit, you can move them onto objectives. If you're targeting an enemy unit, you can move them off objectives, which I think is a pretty powerful ability to have. Both of the buffs that you have are when you want to target the enemy. So you're going to give the enemy the slowed state, so it cannot move twice when it activates until the state is removed. And if you crash them into a wall or some sort of impassable terrain, you can do some damage to them as well. So both pretty good, but mostly I think it's going to be great for objective control. So if this guy is the last guy you activate in the round, then you can use that to do some shenanigans, move people off of their objectives and move some of yours onto them. It comes with a couple of passive abilities as well, which is Twins Bond. So during his activation, when he declares a move, then allied Gale Falchion within 5 strides may move for free. Now, that's going to have no effect on the starter set that we have, as we don't have the Falchion unit yet. Faculty of Magic Elixir, so when performing the action Rest, we can also remove 1 tinge from his profile. So if he starts gaining too much tinge, we can just kind of flush it out of his system a little bit with rests. I don't know how often I'm going to be resting units. It really depends on how stressed everyone gets and how important it's going to be to keep them under stressed. Okay, yeah, he can't join a unit because he's a magic user special guy and there's no option to put him into a unit. So he's always going to be a loner. So you're going to have to watch out for him getting sniped for sure. So this is the Hetman. The Hetman has the High Command ability. What this means is if you hire the Hetman, he becomes your commander of your army. And as a commander, he comes with 3 command tokens. These are tokens that you can spend to do some special abilities throughout the game, but obviously there's a limited number that you can do. He has 3 wounds, so he's a bit tougher than everything else that we've been looking at. He's got willpower of 2 orange die, which is not bad. His morale of 2 allows him to get a couple of stress tokens before that becomes a problem. And yeah, obviously he's only availability 1. Now he actually has a shooting attack. It's 8 strides range and has an orange die with a built-in success. And any hollow specials that he rolls, he gets to add a success to the roll as well. It's, to be honest, a pretty weak attack. If you look at the Frostfire Herald's magic attack and compare it to this one's pretty weak. So I feel like it's something that you're going to do when you don't really have anything else you can do and someone's in range for you to shoot at them. If you could get off a wound, happy days, to be honest. Now his melee attack has a red, yellow, blue and a success. So it's a pretty strong attack, no switches involved. His defense is a blue and a built-in shield. Not particularly strong when he's on his own there. Now what we can do is we can actually stress this unit to get some buffs. So in the melee attack we can give him an extra success if we stress him. Or in the defense we can give him an extra shield if we stress him. It might be a worthwhile buff when you really need it and you want him to survive, or you really want to wound that unit and do that final finishing blow. He has a 0 conquest value, so he's not going to be adding to any of the conquests that he's involved in. He's alright, he's pretty good at close combat, but I don't know if you really want to risk him in close combat if he's running by himself. He does have a couple of abilities, one of which is his command token ability. So he would spend a command token to do discipline, and there's no line of sight required. During your activation, once per round, reduce 1 stress from all allied units within 20 strides. So if he's running by himself, he's really, really good at reducing everybody's stress. I think we can start to see a theme here that there's a lot of character units in the Hegemony of Embersig that reduce stress and hopefully keep the morale of the units through their characters. However, those characters are a little squishy, so you'll want to also keep them protected. He also has a passive ability, Inspiring Leadership, which again needs no line of sight, but all allied units within 20 strides may use the willpower of the Hetman instead of theirs. So this is also really, really good, where he's going to be buffing those bucklermen. Rather than them having willpower of 1 orange die, they can have 2 orange die, which is fantastic. Much, much better. Much greater chance of getting the successes that you need to stop them from panicking. Now, he can also be attached to a infantry unit. He can actually be attached to any infantry unit, which is pretty awesome. So when you're building up your army and we have more choices of units, he can pretty much slot in anywhere you like, which is pretty cool. He will give the unit 2 orange dice for the willpower, which is pretty good. And when fighting a melee attack, he's going to give them an extra automatic success, which is very, very handy. And then on 2 hollow specials, he'll add another success. I'm not sure how useful that's going to be. Hollows are pretty hard to get, and you probably want to use them to knock in shields to prevent damage to your bucklerman if you're attaching him to your bucklerman unit. Now, he still has the Discipline command token ability, but it's just for his unit rather than all units within 20 strides. And he also comes with a passive Steady Soldiers, so his unit may repeat their willpower rolls. That's really nice. So not only are they buffed with a stronger willpower, but they're going to be re-rolling as well when they need to. Fantastic. I should also add as well, when he actually attaches to a unit, now they get a +1 to their conquest. So attaching him to Bucklerman, they're going to have a conquest of 3, which is pretty crazy. Really, really good. I feel like the Hetman is actually a lot better when he's attached to a unit and just making that unit really, really strong. As a lone wolf kind of character, you're going to have to be really, really careful that he doesn't get sniped and taken out. But, you know, he could still be pretty good alone, I guess. Maybe. I don't know until I play the bloody game. This brings us to our last unit in the starter set, which is Drago the Anvil. Basically, the Hetman model and Drago the Anvil are the same model, so you switch profiles depending on what you want to run. Drago's the named character, Hetman is just your regular old Hetman commander. So, of course, if you choose to have Drago the Anvil in your army, he is going to be high command. Now, he is 40 points, which is a whole 15 points more than the Hetman, which is quite a lot. But he does get an extra wound with 4 wounds. His willpower also has an extra yellow dice, making him a lot better at willpower checks. His morale of 3 is pretty strong as well, meaning he can take on a lot of stress. He also has a bloodlust towards the Varank. So if you get the Beyond set for Winds of the North, then you're going to get some Varank models. This guy's basically going to go crazy when he sees them. And if he's in charge range, he's going to charge them and he's going to attack them. If he does charge them, then all of his rolls in all of the combats with that unit, he gets to re-roll the roll if it's no good, which is a pretty good buff. However, it means that you cannot control what he's going to do in his turn if there's a Varank in range. But to be honest, you're probably just going to want to just go and try and destroy that Varank anyway. But it could pull you off of objectives, which is something that to be aware of. He's also got Elite. Now, this is the only model in the army that has Elite. And what this does is it allows you to convert hollow symbols to solid whole symbols, which is pretty insane. Because then you're getting a lot more successes, a lot more shields, a lot more specials. That's great. He can also only join Bucklerman or Bulwark. So his choice of infantry units that he joins is a lot smaller, perhaps, than the Hetman. Now, we don't know the full army range for the Hegemony. So How limiting that is, we don't know yet, but I can imagine as we get more and more units, it's going to be pretty limiting. He's also got a ranged attack, just like the Hetman, but it is weaker, with just a yellow dice and a built-in success. No switches on it, so it's even more throwaway than the Hetman's. However, his close combat attack is just monstrous. 2 red dice, 2 yellow dice, and a green dice, with 2 specials, meaning that your target receives the vulnerable state. When they're rolling a defense, they have to lose one of their die rolls that had a shield symbol on it. So they could end up losing more than 1 shield, or at least they could lose a shield and a special perhaps, which is pretty crazy. Very powerful attack, and the fact that he can convert hollows into solids as well makes it even more dangerous. His defense of 2 blue die and a built-in shield it's alright, it's good, it's not fantastic, I don't think. Now, he can also be buffed a little bit, so if you want to stress him on the attacks, he can get an automatic success and an automatic special, increasing the chances of him putting the vulnerable state on the opponent. On the defense, he can stress to get an extra green dice. Now, the green dice is pretty strong, so that's actually a worthy stress to really keep him alive. Pretty good. And he also has a conquest of 1. Even by himself, he can contest objectives. That's pretty cool. Now, he also comes with a couple of abilities. One, of course, is his command ability, where he uses the command tokens. So he can do this 3 times in the game, which is the Anvil. No line of sight needed. At the end of an activation of an allied unit adds 2 to its conquest value to dispute the control of an objective. Now, that's across the entire battlefield. So there's no range on this. It doesn't say what range and strides it is. It's just an allied unit adds 2 to its conquest value. That's insane. That could like swing you a game, because the game's all about objectives in the current missions that we've got released so far. Now, he's also got Inspiring Leadership, which is a passive ability, no line of sight needed. All allied units may use his willpower instead of theirs. There's no range on it. This is a crazy buff. Like, everything's going to get 2 orange dice and a yellow dice as their willpower if they want to use it, which is insane. So you've got to keep this guy alive. If he dies, your unit crumbles. If you have a few units of Bucklermen, they're all going out there with willpower of 2 orange dice and a yellow dice. They're going to be like just withstanding everything. They're stressed. They're going to be like, yeah, whatever, no problem. But as soon as Drago dies, they are just going to be like crumbling like little crybabies and just run off the field with their tail between their legs. Obviously, we said before, he can be attached to a unit. So he can actually go on with the Bucklerman in the starter set, and he's going to give them, of course, his willpower of 2 orange and 1 yellow. He's going to give them +1 morale as well, which is a pretty good buff for them. In close combat, he's going to add a success, and if you want to stress the unit, it'll add a further success. In defense, he adds an automatic shield and can add a green die if you want to stress them. Great. What's really, really good is he adds 2 conquest value to a unit when he joins a unit. So again, very much worth it just for buffing the unit like no end. It's really, really good. He still has the Anvil command ability, where it's an allied unit. It's not just his unit, but an allied unit adds 2 to its conquest value to dispute the control of a target. So he's already buffing his unit no end by just being in that unit. And then he can spend a command token to buff a unit across the other side of the battlefield to just kind of dominate a map. That's crazy. He's also got 2 passives when he joins a unit. Instructor Ensign, so your unit acquires Elite and Bloodlust. That's pretty insane, because that means now that your bog standard unit of troops are now converting all of their hollows into solids, meaning more successes, more shields, making them more survivable and more killy. That's great. The Bloodlust means you do lose a bit of control with them, but again, they get a buff if they're going to be charging Varank, which is pretty cool. Nobody falls under my command. You may repeat any dice of your choice from your defense rolls. That's pretty awesome, because that's not like oh, I didn't like the roll, let me re-roll all the dice. It's like, I don't like that roll and that roll, let me re-roll those 2. That's really good. Like, that's a very powerful buff. So I feel like Drago in a unit is chef's kiss. He's pretty good. He's going to make that unit pretty powerful and just dominating the battlefield. This will put Drago further in front on the main lines a little bit, but then he's got a whole unit that he keeps alive more efficiently, and hopefully that's enough to keep him alive throughout the game as well, so that he can't be sniped. That's pretty cool. Okay, so that's basically the Hegemony of Embersig. I think it's going to be an army that's buffing a lot of its troops. The troops themselves might be a little bit squishy. They've got good conquest. That's their kind of the main thing that they do, is just control the map as much as possible. They have very bad morale, except when their commanders are nearby, and their commanders buff them no end. So it's all about the leaders buffing the line troopers, and the line troopers and everyone just turtling and holding objectives really, really hard. So it's going to be an interesting army to play. I think they're going to be good. They just got to watch out for anything that kind of snipes them, really. So it's going to be curious to see how the other armies play, and if there's going to be certain armies that they're going to be weak to or strong against. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited for it. If you're excited for Warcrow, please let me know in the comments. If there's anything else you want me to cover about Warcrow, please let me know in the comments as well. I'm really, really excited. Hopefully we'll be seeing the game very soon now. And yeah, take care, everyone. If you enjoyed the video and enjoyed my ramblings about the Hegemony of Embersig, please leave a like, as I said, a comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.